The most radioactive places in Chernobyl. The most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Very dangerous objects. It is not recommended to visit these places, but we will show you these places and tell you about the most radioactive and abandoned places in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. We have chosen the 5 most radioactive places in Chernobyl. These are basement of the hospital in Pripyat, basement of the Jupiter plant in Pripyat, Red Forest in Chernobyl, Chernobyl nuclear power plant, cemetery equipment, Buryakovka. The most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Number 1. Basement of the hospital in Pripyat. Everyone has already heard about the scary room in the basement of the Pripyat Medical and Sanitary Unit number 126. That's where the belongings of the firefighters and workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, who extinguished the fire during the terrible accident at the nuclear power plant, lie. The power plant in 1986. This is a very radioactive and dangerous place in Chernobyl. The radiation in the first hours after the explosion reached such monstrous levels that the people fighting the fire died within a year from radiation sickness. The first victim was taken to a hospital in Pripyat. Clothes that had radiation on them were sent by the orderlies to the hospital basement. A day later, the whole town was evacuated and all the dirty things were forgotten. 39 years have passed, but radioactive clothes continue to lie in the same basement, emitting about 4 pH beta and gamma radiation, which exceeds the norm by hundreds of thousands of times. Extreme sports enthusiasts and just curious tourists sometimes go down into this room wearing protective clothing. But we strongly not recommend you to do it without knowledge and equipment, as it poses a serious threat to your health and life. Most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Number 2. The basement of the Jupiter plant in Pripyat, Chernobyl. The underground of the Jupiter plant in Pripyat is now one of the creepiest and most inaccessible places in the Chernobyl zone. Because the basement was flooded, it is very unpleasant to be in. We had to wear special shoe covers to avoid getting our feet wet. The water reaches your knees in some places. Also, in these underground laboratories, there is a box with sand and chemical reagents. Probably here were conducted studies on the effect of radiation on electronics and equipment that worked near the destroyed reactor. The most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Number 3. The Red Forest in Chernobyl. The Red Forest in Chernobyl is a unique corner of Chernobyl nature, which suffered from the effects of radiation in 1986 after the Chernobyl accident. The pine trees that grew in this area of about 10 kilometers each turned yellow, burned from radiation, trapping a cloud of radioactive dust flying from the plant after the accident. The background in this forest was as high as 1-2 X-rays, so the trees were stacked and buried in trenches in the place where they grew. Now the forest is recovering, but it looks rather strange. The background is still very high and it's very dangerous out there. Most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Number 4. Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Chernobyl nuclear power plant is the most radioactive place in Chernobyl. This is where the explosion occurred on April 26, 1986, which led to a nuclear disaster, the most serious in history. What does the Chernobyl nuclear power plant look like today? What is the radiation background today? The most radioactive abandoned places in Chernobyl. Number 5. Cemetery of Machinery and Burial Ground, Buryakovka. The most radioactive abandoned place in Chernobyl is the Cemetery of Machinery, Buryakovka. During the liquidation of the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant used a lot of different equipment, from motorcycles to attack helicopters and tanks. The works were carried out under powerful radioactive radiation. For this reason, further use of this equipment became impossible. Buryakovka is a trench lagoon repository of radioactive waste. The trenches of the burial ground are designed for burial of non-combustible solid waste. This is primer, building structures, equipment. It is designed for 300 years. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.